Here on the home front, as the March inflation rate jumps to 8.5%, Americans pay more for just about everything. The price of gasoline is up 48%, new vehicles 12.5%, used car and truck prices are up 35.3%, and prices for food, they're up 8.5%. So why are we paying more? In many cases, a lot more. Well, joining us to provide some answers is the chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media, Steve Forbes. He ran for president in 1996 and 2000. You may remember him as an advocate for the flat tax, but he's really about much more than that. Mr. Forbes has just finished writing a new book, along with Nathan Lewis and Elizabeth Ames, Inflation: What It Is, Why It's Bad, and How to Fix It. Thank you, Steve. It's so good to see you again. You write in your book, price increases are only the symptoms, not the cause of inflation. So what's the cause, especially now as war rages in Ukraine? Initially, President Biden said the cause was coming out of the pandemic. Now he seems to blame Vladimir Putin and the war. So who or what do you feel is to blame?
Well, there are two kinds of inflation, what you might call non-monetary inflation and monetary inflation. The non-monetary kind is when you get a war or a drought or the lockdown such as we had during the COVID-19 crisis. That disrupts production, that sends up prices. The other kind, the more dangerous kind over time, is when the governments undermine the value of the currency, in this case, the dollar, making it worth less by printing too many of them. Cash-strapped governments have been known to do that for thousands of years, and that's what we're experiencing today. They trash the dollar, they hurt production, and prices go up. And that's one reason why we wrote the book, is to strip away the mystery about inflation, make it very readable to people so they understand what's going on and what we can do about it.
You monitor markets and supplies, and China may be easing its COVID lockdown in Shanghai a bit. That city has the largest port in the world, and I guess the port remains open, but people have been shut in for 3 weeks now, and that's affected manufacturing there. How has that affected the global supply chain and inflation here in the U.S.? Do you expect prices of many consumer products to jump even more so due to lack of availability?
Well, what that means is that price increases are going to be continuing to be with us. And that's, again, the non-monetary kind of inflation, this kind of artificial disruption, shutting down a whole city, the most sophisticated, largest city in China. Very foolish, but they did it, and that hurts. And those kinds of things, that monetary kind of inflation, guy, is something that if governments just leave the economy alone, people will work it out, get around it. It's the monetary kind where the Fed creates too much money. That's what we have to focus on now. And unfortunately, this maybe get ahead of ourselves. Unfortunately, the Fed believes that the way to control inflation is not by stabilizing the value of the dollar, but by creating more unemployment, slowing the economy down. That's what they mean when they say soft landing. What they really mean is more unemployment, and too often it leads to a crash landing for the economy.
So let's look at the inflationary effect on just one specific here, housing. Let's say 15 years ago, Steve, someone bought a home for $300,000. Today, they sell it for $600,000. Now, many people would be thrilled by that profit, but you suggest in your book they may fail to realize reality here. What's the money illusion that you talk about?
Well, the money illusion is that $300,000 profit you thought you had in real terms is not there because of the declining value of the dollar. What was worth a dollar a year, 15, 20 years ago, may be worth, 40 or 50 cents today. So you think I've doubled my money. No, you've just stayed in place. You haven't gone forward. And so you end up often with these assets, especially stocks, pay a capital gains on something that is illusory, really not there. So remember, $1 20 years ago, worth much more than $1 today. And over the past 50 years, the dollar has lost 90% of its value, sometimes a lot like the 1970s or in recent times. But when you do 1%, 2%, 3% a year, it accumulates. So you end up losing, and you don't understand why you can't seem to get ahead, why your wages, they seem to go up, but you really can't move ahead. It's very, very acidic. It undermines social trust and leads to social unrest because people don't know what is happening to them when the government devalues the dollar.
And I know today many people are looking to cryptocurrency to help them get some quick profits and a little bit of inflationary relief. But I know you're skeptical because of crypto's instability. You say it currently functions as more of a payment system rather than an actual currency. So do you expect that to change? Explain.
Well, there are two kinds of cryptocurrencies. One is, of course, Bitcoin, which has had a huge run, even though they've had some ups and downs. And the other kind is called stablecoin. Stablecoin cryptocurrencies are tied to a specific asset like gold or the dollar. So you don't get the kind of fluctuations. And so Bitcoin, you would never take a mortgage out in Bitcoin. Let's say you took a $250,000 mortgage out in Bitcoin, you may up a year later owing $2.5 million. And so that kind of instability doesn't make it work for as a currency. But I see the time coming, and we discuss this in the book, is that stable coins could eventually be a competitor to government money like the dollar or the pound or the yen or the euro. People use these stable coins rather than the untrustworthy money that comes from government. And that's a big battle coming.
President Biden ascribes to the idea modern monetary theory, which was advanced by economist Stephanie Kelton. So what is it? Why is it bad policy?
Well, modern monetary theory is simply a costume for the old practice of devaluing the money. You know, in Roman times, they would take a coin, silver or gold coin, and put a lot of bad metals in it, cheap metals, devalue money that way. In modern times, you print up a lot of money and devalue it that way. So modern monetary theory says you can devalue the dollar, you can print as many dollars as you like, spend as much as you like without consequences. As we explain in the book, there are some unusual factors in 2008 crisis where the Federal Reserve did expand the money supply, but most of it was used for banks to replenish their battered balance sheets. But now they think that, gee, we can continue to print money with no consequences. Just look at Venezuela today, look at Germany in the early 1920s, and you can see the consequences of what that would lead to. You're already starting to see the consequences now. If you think prices are bad now, wait until a year and a half when the Federal Reserve follows through on printing a lot more money. Then you're going to really hurt at the pump and at the marketplace.
Okay, stay where you are. Up next, we'll look at ways we can fix the inflation problem for the long term and where Steve Forbes thinks you should invest your money in this uncertain time.